The dojo is empty. Rain hammers the roof. A young man sits alone in the center, sword across his lap. He's been here for 3 hours, waiting for his teacher to return. But the teacher left 6 months ago and never came back. The young man doesn't know this yet. An older swordsman enters, shakes the rain from his coat, sees the young man sitting. "Who are you waiting for?" "Master Takeda. He said he'd return. Takeda-sensei died 4 months ago." The young man's face doesn't change, but something inside him breaks. The swordsman continues. "You're still here because you think someone will make you strong." But the samurai knew. Strength only comes when you stop waiting for someone to give it to you. Here's what the ancient warriors understood that modern people have forgotten. You don't become strong with others. You become strong alone. Not because isolation is noble, but because real strength is built in the hours no one sees. When there's no teacher to correct you, or no partner to motivate you, no audience to perform for. The Japanese called this Hitori-geiko, Irin-jigu, solitary practice. And they didn't see it as supplementary training. They saw it as the only training that actually mattered. Because when you practice alone, you face the hardest opponent, yourself, your excuses, your shortcuts, your need for external validation. And until you can train without someone watching, you're not training at all, you're just performing. The student who needed others 2 years before the empty dojo. Kenji is 22, training at a prestigious sword school in Kyoto. Talented, dedicated, dependent. He's good when the master is watching, sharp, focused, perfect form. But when he practices alone, he can't. Not because he doesn't know what to do, but because something inside him goes slack without external eyes. The master notices, calls him aside after class. "You're skilled, but you have a weakness." "What weakness?" "You only exist when someone's watching." Kenji is defensive. "I practice every day. You perform every day, in front of me, in front of the other students. But when you're alone, you disappear." "How do you—" "I've watched, through the window. When you think no one's there, you're half the swordsman you are in class." Kenji feels exposed. Because it's true. When he's alone, his mind wanders. His cuts get lazy. He stops early, rationalizes it. "I already practiced in class. This is enough." But it's not about the time, it's about the quality. And alone, his quality collapses. The master continues. "You're addicted to feedback. You need my correction, the other students' presence. Without them, you don't know if you're doing well, so you stop trying." "That's not true." "Then prove it. 1 month, solo practice only. No classes, no partners, just you. Every morning, 2 hours. Alone in the dojo. And I won't be watching." Kenji feels panic. "But how will I know if I'm improving?" The master's expression doesn't change. "You'll know, or you won't. But I won't tell you." "That's the point." He pauses. "A swordsman who needs an audience isn't a swordsman. He's a performer. And performers die in real combat." Day 1. Kenji arrives at the dojo at dawn. Empty. Silent. Cold. He draws his sword, sets his stance, and immediately feels nothing. No energy, no drive. Just going through motions. The cuts that felt powerful in class feel hollow now, like he's mimicking movements without inhabiting them. He does 10 cuts. Tells himself good enough. But even as he thinks it, he knows it's not. Knows he's settling. Knows without the master's gaze, he has no internal fire. He does 10 more, worse than the first 10, his mind already elsewhere. What's the point? No one's here to see this. Sheathes his sword. Barely 30 minutes have passed. White tells himself, "I'll do better tomorrow." Day 3. Same thing. He arrives, goes through the motions, every cut mechanical, no intent behind them, just checking the box. I showed up, that's what matters. But deep down, he knows it's not. Knows showing up without presence is just lying. Leaves after 40 minutes. Day 5. He's dreading it now. The walk to the dojo feels heavy, not because the training is hard, but because he has to face the truth about himself. That without someone watching, he doesn't care, doesn't push, doesn't try. He practices, barely. And halfway through something breaks. He stops mid-cut, stands there, sword raised, and asks himself, why am I even doing this? Not the training, this, the pretending. The going through motions alone when he knows he's not really there. He has no answer, just emptiness. Day 7. Kenji oversleeps, misses the morning session entirely, tells himself, I'll practice tonight. Doesn't. Yon tells himself, I'll make up for it tomorrow. Doesn't. And within a week of solo practice, he's barely practicing at all. By day 10, he stops going completely. He avoids the master, avoids the other students, ashamed, not because he failed to practice, but because he can't practice without them, can't find the fire alone. And that realization is crushing, because it means everything he thought he was just performance. 2 weeks later, the master finds him. You stopped coming. I failed. I know. How? Because most people do. Kenji looks up. Then why did you make me try? The master sits. To show you what you're made of when no one's watching. And right now, you're made of excuses. Kenji feels anger rising. Then what's the point? If most people fail, why even? Because some don't. Some people discover something when they're alone. Something they can't find in a room full of others. What? The master is quiet for a moment. Geiko, Siji, self. Not the self you perform. The self you are when there's no one to perform for. And until you find that self, you'll never be strong. You'll just be dependent. But I don't know how to find it. I know. That's why you failed. You were trying to practice alone. But you were still practicing for someone. For me. For some imagined standard. You never practiced from yourself. How do I do that? The master stands. I'll give you one more chance. But this time, different. What's different? This time, I'm sending you somewhere no one knows you. And you'll train there, alone, for 3 months. No teacher, no school, no identity. Just you. And we'll see what's left when everything else is stripped away. Kenji feels terror. Because he knows that without the structure, without the role, he might find there's nothing there. But something else stirs too. Curiosity. What would be left? Who is he when no one's watching? He doesn't know. And that not knowing is both terrifying and necessary. Where am I going? The master hands him an address. Small village, mountains, remote. There's an abandoned dojo there. You'll stay. For 3 months, alone. No contact, no validation, no witnesses. Just practice. And at the end, come back. And I'll know immediately if you found it. Found what? The master doesn't answer. Just waits. But what Kenji doesn't understand yet is, the master wasn't testing his discipline. He was testing something deeper. Something most people never develop because they're too afraid to be truly alone. The village of silence. Kenji arrives at the village on a cold morning. 3 hours by train, 2 more by foot. The dojo sits at the edge, wooden, weathered. No one's used it in years. Inside, dust, broken boards, emptiness. He sets down his pack, and the silence hits him immediately. Not peaceful, oppressive. No master to report to, no students to train with, just him. First day. He wakes at dawn. No alarm needed. The habit is still there. Goes to the dojo, draws his sword, and feels nothing. The same emptiness as before, but this time there's no one to quit to, no one to confess failure to, just this. So he practices anyway. 100 cuts, every one of them hollow, like he's cutting through air instead of intent. But he finishes, because there's nothing else to do. Wanted no distraction, no escape, just this practice or nothing. He chooses practice, not because he wants to, because the alternative is sitting alone with the silence, and that's worse. Day 5. Something shifts, not improvement, just awareness. He's doing a basic downward cut and realizes this cut is terrible. Not because someone told him, he just feels it. The angle is off, the grip is loose, the intent is missing, and for the first time, he sees it, without a mirror, without a master. He just internal knowing. He adjusts. Does the cut again. Better. Still not good, but better. And no one told him that. He knew it. From the feeling in his hands, the way the blade moved through space. Internal feedback, not external validation, just truth. Day 12. Kenji establishes a ritual. Not because someone told him to, but because the chaos of unstructured time is unbearable. Every morning, 1,000 cuts, same cut, kezagiri, diagonal downward, not for variety, for depth. One cut. 1,000 times, until he knows it. The first 100, mechanical. The second 100, distracted. The third 100, his arm is burning. The fourth 100, his mind empties. The fifth 100, something shifts. The cut isn't his anymore. His body just does it. No thought, no trying, just movement. And for 30 seconds, he disappears. Then it's gone. 106, back to thinking, back to trying. But he felt it, that moment where he wasn't there, just cutting. And he knows that's what he's searching for. Not perfect form, but disappearance into the form. Week 3. Kenji stops counting days, not because he's lost track, but because the days have blurred. Each one the same: wake, practice, eat, practice, sleep, no variation, no novelty. And in that repetition, something emerges. He notices his cuts are changing, not because he's trying to change them, but because his body is learning, without him forcing it. The grip adjusts itself. The angle corrects, the timing sharpens. All of it happening beneath conscious thought, like his body has its own intelligence, and it only emerges when his mind stops interfering. But here's what Kenji discovers. Being alone isn't the same as being with yourself. He's alone, physically, but his mind is still filled with others. Imagined conversations with the master, rehearsing what he'll say when he returns, performing for an imagined audience. One morning, he stops mid-cut and asks himself, who am I doing this for? Not philosophically, practically, right now, this cut. Who is it for? And he realizes, still the master, still seeking approval from someone who isn't even here, still performing even in solitude, and that realization breaks something. He sits, sword across his lap, and for the first time asks, what would I do if no one ever saw this? If the master never came back? If I never returned to the school? What would I practice? How would I practice? Would I practice at all? The questions terrify him, because he doesn't know the answer. He sits with that not knowing for an hour, 2, and slowly, something emerges. Not an answer, a feeling. I would still cut, not for approval, not for achievement, but because I want to know what I'm capable of. I want to see how good I can become when no one's watching. I want to discover who I am when there's no role to play. That night, he sleeps deeply for the first time in weeks. And the next morning, when he practices, it's different, not better, just his, not performing for anyone, just being with the practice. And in that being, something unlocks. But there's a trap waiting, one that even solitary practitioners fall into, and Kenji is about to discover it the hard way. The Trap of Self, Week 5. Kenji is flying. The practice feels good now. He's improving, visibly. His cuts are sharper, his movement is cleaner, and he can feel it. Every session he's better than the last. And that feeling, it's addictive. He starts pushing, not gently, hard. 2 hours becomes 3, 3 becomes 4. He practices until his hands bleed, until his body screams, and tells himself, this is discipline, this is growth. But something's changing. The presence he found, it's slipping. He's not practicing with himself anymore. He's practicing against himself. Every cut is measured. Was that better than yesterday? Am I improving fast enough? What will the master think when he sees this? The imagined audience is back, but this time, it's not the master. It's future Kenji, the Kenji who returns to the school victorious. Week 6. He starts experimenting. Maybe I should learn new techniques. Maybe one cut isn't enough. He remembers forms the master showed him, starts practicing all of them. Morning session, 20 different cuts. Afternoon, footwork drills, combinations. Evening, reviewing everything he's learned. And the depth disappears. He's no longer going into one thing. He's collecting things, accumulating techniques like trophies, and telling himself, I'm becoming well-rounded. But he's not. He's becoming scattered. Week 7. His hands won't stop shaking, not from exertion, from exhaustion. He's been pushing for weeks, sleeping less, practicing more, optimizing every moment, and his body is breaking. But he can't stop, because stopping feels like losing, like all this progress will disappear if he pauses. One morning, he collapses mid-cut. Not dramatically, just drops. Sword clatters to the floor. He lies there, staring at the ceiling, and realizes, I'm doing it again. Performing. Not for the master, not for the school, for himself, for some imagined ideal of what he should be. He's turned solitude into another cage. The internal judge is harsher than any master, more demanding, more cruel, and he's been serving it for weeks, chasing improvement instead of being with the practice. Seeking validation from his own progress instead of just cutting. The trap he thought he'd escaped. He just internalized it. He lies there for an hour, then sits up, looks at his sword, and asks, "What am I doing this for?" Not the first time he's asked, but this time, he waits for the answer, doesn't rush it, doesn't assume it, just waits. And slowly, something emerges, a memory. Years ago, first time he held a sword, he was 7, no training, no skill, just wonder, the weight of it, the feel of it. He swung it once, terribly, and laughed. Not because it was good, because it was alive. When did that disappear? When did the practice become about proving instead of discovering? When did he start measuring instead of experiencing? He doesn't know, but he knows it's gone. And all his improvement, all his discipline, it's built on the wrong foundation, built on becoming instead of being, on proving instead of practicing. That afternoon, he does something radical. Stops. Completely. No practice, no cutting, just sits. In the dojo, sword beside him, and rests. Not because he's earned it, but because his body is begging for it. And for the first time in weeks, he listens. Day 2 of rest. The guilt is overwhelming. I should be practicing, I'm wasting time, but he stays with it, sits with the guilt, feels it without obeying it. And beneath the guilt, exhaustion, deep, structural, not just physical, spiritual. He's been driving himself for weeks. And the cost is everything he came here to find. Day 3. He picks up the sword, not to practice, just to hold it, feels the weight, the balance, the presence of it. And something softens. I don't have to prove anything. I don't have to become anything. I just have to cut and see what happens. Day 4. He practices again, but differently. Just one cut, kesagiri, the same one he started with. Not 1,000 times, just 10. 10 perfect presences, 10 moments of being there, no measurement, no improvement, just this cut, now. And in the 10th cut, something happens. The sword moves without him, not because he's trying to let go, but because he's not trying at all, just cutting. And for 3 seconds, there's no kenji, no self-judgment, no performance, just the cut, pure, complete. When it's over, he stands still, breathing, and knows, that's it. That's what he's been searching for, not mastery of the sword, but disappearance into it, where there's no one doing the practice. It just practice happening, and he only found it when he stopped chasing it. But here's what Kenji doesn't understand yet. This moment, this disappearance, it's not the end. It's the beginning of something deeper, something that will determine if any of this was real. The return month 3. Kenji wakes to rain, his final day in the village. Tomorrow, he returns to Kyoto, to the master, to the school. And he feels nothing, not anxiety, not excitement, just stillness. He practices one last time. The same cut he's been doing for weeks, kesagiri. And it's ordinary, not perfect, not transcendent, just a cut. But there's something different about it. He's there, fully, completely, not performing, not measuring, just cutting. The journey back is long. Train, bus, walking, and with each mile closer to Kyoto, he feels it. The pull of the old patterns, the performance, the need to prove what he learned, to show the master, to validate the 3 months. And he notices the pull without obeying it. That's the old way. I don't need to do that anymore. He arrives at the school at dusk. The master is in the garden, doesn't look up when Kenji approaches. "You're back." "Yes, show me." Kenji draws his sword, sets his stance, and for a moment, hesitation. What if I'm not good enough? What if he doesn't see the change? Then remembers, I'm not cutting for him, I'm just cutting. He cuts, once, kesagiri. The same cut he's done 10,000 times, and it's nothing special, just a cut, but present, real. The master watches in silence. Kenji sheathes his sword, waits. The master finally looks at him. You found it. Found what? Geiko, self. How do you know? Because you didn't ask me if the cut was good. You didn't need my approval. You just cut. The master stands. That's what 3 months alone teaches. Not technique, not skill, but the ability to be with yourself. To practice from self, not for others. Most students never learn this. They spend their entire lives seeking validation. From teachers, from opponents, from audiences. But you stopped seeking. And in that stopping, you found the only thing that matters, yourself, as the source. Kenji feels something release. Not pride, just recognition. I did it. I actually did it. But the master's next words shatter the moment. Now comes the real test. What test? Staying found. You discovered yourself in isolation, but now you're back, with others, with distractions, and everything you learned. It will try to disappear. The old patterns will call you. The need for validation will return. And you'll have to choose, every day, solo practice or performance. 6 months later, Kenji is back at the school, training with others, sparring, living. And the master was right. The pull is constant. As every class, part of him wants to perform, to show what he learned, to prove himself, but he's learned to notice it, and instead of obeying, he returns to self, returns to practice. Not for them, for himself. One morning, a new student arrives, young, talented, desperate for approval. Kenji sees himself 2 years ago. The student approaches after class. You're really good. How did you? Kenji almost gives advice, almost performs the role of senior student, but stops. How did I what? Get so good? What's the secret? Kenji thinks. There is no secret, just practice alone. Alone? Yes, every day. When no one's watching, find out who you are when there's no audience, and practice from there. The student looks confused. But how will I know if I'm doing it right? You'll know, or you won't. But you won't be asking someone else. The student walks away, uncertain, unsatisfied. And Kenji realizes, you can't give this to someone. They have to find it themselves, in the solitude, in the silence, in the hours no one sees. The mirror. Here's how this connects to you. Right now, you're learning, consuming information, collecting insights. And part of you thinks, this will make me stronger, but it won't. Because strength isn't built through learning, it's built through doing, alone, when no one's watching, when there's no validation, when it's just you. Here's the practice. Tomorrow morning, before you check your phone, do something hard. Not for progress, not to post about it, not to tell anyone, just do it. 50 push-ups, 10 minutes of writing, 1 difficult conversation, anything that requires you to show up for yourself, alone. And notice what happens. Notice the resistance, the voice that says, what's the point if no one sees it? That voice, that's your weakness, the addiction to external validation, the need for witnesses to make your effort real. But here's the truth. Your effort is real whether anyone sees it or not. You are strong whether anyone acknowledges it or not. You exist whether anyone validates it or not. Do this once, then again tomorrow. And 6 months from now, notice. You're different. Not because you achieved something, but because you became someone. Someone who doesn't need others to feel strong. Someone who practices when no one's watching. Someone who is self-sourced. And that strength, that's real. Not because it's impressive, but because it's yours. Built in the hours no one saw, earned in the silence, forged in solitude. The final lesson. Years later, someone asks Kenji, how did you become so strong? He's quiet for a long time. I stopped trying to become strong for others and started training alone. That's it? That's everything. But don't you need teachers or partners? You need them for learning, but not for becoming. Becoming happens alone, in the hours no one sees, when there's no audience to perform for. When it's just you and the practice, that's where strength is built. So you never train with others? I train with others, but I'm built alone. Every morning, before anyone's awake, I practice solo. Not to improve, not to achieve, just to be with myself, to remember who I am when there's no role to play. And that practice, that's what makes everything else possible. Does it ever get easier? Kenji smiles. No, it's hard every day. The resistance is always there. The pull to skip it, to perform instead of practice. But I've learned, that's the work. Not the technique, not the cuts, but the choice. Every day, to show up. Alone, to practice when no one's watching. To be strong for myself, not for others. And that choice, that's what makes you strong. You're reading this right now, and your mind is asking, what do I do with this? The answer, stop asking, start doing. Tomorrow morning, before anyone's awake, before you check your phone, before you perform your day, practice, alone. Whatever your practice is, do it. Not for progress, not for others, for you. And in that doing, discover, you don't need anyone to make you strong. You just need yourself, and the willingness to show up alone. The samurai knew, a warrior who needs an audience is not a warrior. He's a performer. And performers die when the audience leaves. But the warrior who practices alone, he remains. Whether witnessed or not, whether praised or not, whether seen or not. He remains, strong, alone, himself. If this landed, tomorrow's practice begins in silence, not in the comments.